What's up, guys and gals? It's your host of the most Griever, as always, bringing you guys the latest piece of One Piece, chapter 1095. And alright. So here's the deal about this chapter, alright? Because I'm not on any of these agendas, you know what I mean? Like, I try not to be. I think it was long ago established, before we even met outside of Shanks, before we met Yonkos and Admirals, it was stated a long ass time ago that the entire force of the Marines, last time I checked included Admirals, plus the 7 Warlords, were combined as one force to balance out 4 Yonko, because otherwise one of these forces cannot compete with the others to keep the balance. So I always took it to mean that Yonkos are the strongest. I don't know why that's so complicated for people to understand, but anyways, we're not here to talk about the power scale. Okay? That's my spiel on it. We were told a long time ago by Garp when he explained Yonkos and Warlords and all that stuff. We were told it. I've been holding on to that ever since, and I've seen not really any evidence in the manga to the contrary. So that's my spiel on that. Not going to go on a whole tirade, because all I'm seeing now, nobody's actually discussing the chapter. Everyone's talking about Sanji getting neg-diffed, Kizaru getting one shot, blah, 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 blah. And I'm just like, yeah, okay. But can we actually talk about the chapter, please? Which is what I'm going to start doing. So, first things first. The Gorosei likely all had the immortal surgery on them. First thing I thought of when he got stabbed, didn't seem to care. He even states in this chapter, if I wanted to dodge, I would have. Also, the black flame things, clearly he is awakened. I know a lot of people were saying, oh, it might not be a devil fruit, blah, blah, blah. I always took it to be a devil fruit. It clearly is his own fruit of some mythical spider thing. I've seen a few theories on what type of mythical spider, but definitely an awakened version, because we see the black, flames like Lucci had, like Kaido has, like people have, right? So, okay, fine dandy. Like Luffy has. Okay, fine dandy. But then he pulls the sword out, and not only does the wound instantly heals and all the blood. So we don't know if the blood went back in him or just disappeared or whatever. But I'm going to take this as he's gotten the immortal surgery or something of that lines. And I mean, once again, the immortal surgery, was it stated that it made you live forever like an elf from Lord of the Rings and you could still die? Or is it supposed to make you invulnerable like the Dragon Ball's version of immortality? See, that's the problem when people use the term immortal. A lot of series, translations and stuff use it incorrectly. Because immortality does not mean invincibility, eternal youth. All these things are sort of intertwined a lot, and they're not necessarily correct. But I'm going to go off on a limb here and say that the Oppi Oppi no Mi's, ability makes this shit happen. You get stabbed. It's immortality like the Dragon Balls give you, though it's more of an invincibility, not immortality, but what have you. So that was my first thought. I doubt there's a devil fruit, a spider devil fruit of all things, that randomly, can heal all wounds. That seems weird to me. But you guys tell me what you guys think. But that's my initial theory. I don't have any others. I'm just thinking, and it would explain why the Gorosei looked the same 50 years ago in the flashback here, or 30 years ago, whatever it is, 30, 40 years ago. They looked the same. We've seen them in the silhouette with Vegapunk. They look the same. They always seem to look the same, right? The Gorosei don't seem to age. They take on the appearance of old men, but they never seem to change in appearance. So I'm assuming that the ability, keeps them basically there in a stasis. Maybe they're not living nor dead. Maybe it's totally outside of that even. Maybe it's outside of a devil fruit. Maybe Im-sama has blessed them with not moving forward, like they're locked in frozen time, if you will, like Merlin from Seven Deadly Sins. Maybe something like that. I'm not sure, but my first thought was the heart surgery. So the immortal surgery. So then there's that. And yes, Sanji gets taken down and stuff, but so does Bonnie. A lot of people taken down. Remember, this attack blew up the head of a the glare from this guy, from St. Saturn, blew up the head of a low-ranked Marine. So the fact that these guys are being held down by a weight, like a gravitational force or something, we don't exactly know what these abilities are yet, but maybe it's like a version of the Medusa's glare or something like that. It's like when they stare at you, they you're trapped under their gaze, like glare, and you can't move. You're paralyzed, something like that. I'm not 100% sure, but Sanji bites it. So does actually Bonnie and quite a few of the other characters. And then we do see, now here's what people are talking about, is that Kizaru took one shot that other people got up from, yada yada yada, and Kizaru is conscious, but he's like, because St. Saturn's giving them the shit for it, and he's just like, look, I can't get up yet. Then he basically, but depending on your translation, it all boils down to the same thing, is that Kizaru's like, yeah, I took that hit, and I'm in a bad way. I cannot move right now. At the very least, Kizaru is conscious, but he's not getting up. He'll get up shortly, probably, but maybe about the time that Luffy takes to heal up or something. But Kizaru's not about to jump back up ready for battle, right? And I think that's fair. He took he finally took out an entire Conqueror's Haki Gear 5 hit. And right to the head. I mean, if it didn't do what it did to Kizaru, I mean, you know what I'm saying? So, yeah. So, either way. So, St. Saturn's about to attack and destroy. He's like, well, I see what you are up against, knowing, of course, about the Nika and all that stuff. Frankie punches Luffy out of the way and stuff, and in his weakened state, he's all fucked up. So Frankie being a boss right here, he's helping out and stuff like that. And Frankie's thinking this is awesome. He goes, so we got one of the 5 Elder Stars down here just to deal with our captain. Man, we really did go up in the world, didn't we? So Frankie's fine with the way shit's going. So, but unfortunately, St. Saturn still has Bonnie in his clutches. Talks to, the involvement of this, that, and the other thing. He goes on a spiel. It's not really that interesting. It's pretty much saying like, well, now I'm going to kill all of you because, it was going to be a quiet assassination. Too bad you betrayed us, Vegapunk. Yada, yada, yada. Humans never do what they're supposed to. So he either believes himself to be beyond what a human is in that arrogant sort of Tenryubito way. Like, oh, we're not human like you're human. We've evolved into superhuman or something. Or they are literally, he's speaking quite literally, and they are not human. They are literally another race, potentially, because we get introduced to one of the other races. So, would this count for all of Big Mom's races right now? Would it? Because she has no giants, so she had 3 races that she didn't include. But I forget if she included giants in the 3. One, of course, was King's tribe, and now Kuma's being revealed that he's a buccaneer. He's one of the buccaneer race. He's the last known survivor of the extinct buccaneer race. And of course, a buccaneer, that's a perfect, name, in a pirate manga and stuff for a race and stuff like that. So, and we jump back into a flashback here all about Kuma. So we finally get Kuma's full backstory here, which once again, it doesn't tie up necessarily, because I'm like, okay, so what you're telling me right here is that at some point, Kuma escaped, became king of the Sorbet Kingdom, then went back to, like, he accomplished a lot. He's had a lot of shit happen in the 40-odd years, 50-odd years that Kuma's been alive, technically. You know what I mean? So, we get this flashback with Kuma. And everyone else is going to go over it. I started to watch Tekken's review. I haven't finished it yet. But Kuma was born to the last of the Buccaneer race, obviously, blah, 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 blah. It seemed to be all good, but then, of course, they found out about it, the world government and stuff, and they were all enslaved, that kind of idea, right? But the family got to stay together, so Kuma didn't know any better and stuff, and the dad is all beat up and chained up and stuff, right? But they put Kuma to work right away, like, oh, look at the strength of the Buccaneer tribe, blah, and we know how terrible Buccaneer tribe is, stuff, right? Or the Buccaneer tribe, that the Tenryubito, that the world nobles are. We know celestial dragons are awful. So, either way, they try to be good and stuff like that. They're trying to like, yeah, Kuma, how you holding up and stuff, and they're trying to keep a happy face on it in a sort of a roundabout way. The dad's crying and Kuma's crying and stuff. He says basically your mother's dead and she's gone off to a better place, which technically, yeah, the longer you suffer, it's sort of like, yeah, she probably was put out of her misery being at this state. You know what I mean? I mean, it's sad that, Kuma grew up mostly without a mother, we don't know how many years. We're not given a timestamp, but it seems only to be, he might be 10 maybe. So he had a bit of a childhood with her, a horrible one, obviously, and then she died. So that's very, very sad, obviously. Now, the dad and him continue to be slaves and stuff. Of course, Kuma just doesn't understand, you got to be strong, Kuma. You got to do this. The warrior liberation, the sun god Nika tells him all about Nika. All this stuff would have been incredibly interesting to go down the list and actually dive into and talk about if, and we'll get to the end of the chapter before I talk about that, but bad placement. Really bad placement in Egghead is another big problem with the Egghead Island arc, and we're going to get into that, because right now, this is all very interesting. I want Kuma's backstory. This is not the time for it, and we'll talk about that, because we should have already had this information. We'll get to that. So, either way, when he's telling them all about, with the other slaves, the Nika always smiles, he beats to the drum, doom da da doom da doom da da doom da, and all that stuff, and Kuma's starting to laugh and stuff like that, and then that's when, just randomly, the dad is shot by a Tenryubito, just boom! Shut up in there! And just keeps walking, just straight up kills his dad right in front of his face. So, his mother dies, it's a horrible thing. He starts telling him about, we don't know how long after this is. Because it doesn't seem to be that very same, it doesn't seem to be the same day, but he seems to be around the same age. So later on, after losing his mother, at some point shortly thereafter, at the very least, he loses his dad just because, oh, you're being, noisy for just, humming a little bit, and boom, shot dead right in front of him and stuff. So we don't know, just the reaction there just must have been brutal. Like, he's just like, huh? Like, splat, done. And then we get time skip to 38 years ago in the West Blue, where basically, and I'm not the hugest fan of this, because in all honesty, and not even a lot of people are talking about this, because Shanks's dad is here, what's their name? Frank Ferdinand, or whatever the hell the name is. Figureland Garling, yeah, that's his name. Figureland Garling is there and stuff, and we get some information about, like, okay, so God Valley was this place and stuff like that, but the fact of the matter is that the Tenryubito, basically, who, of course they do, because what's one of the worst series that gained notoriety that was, I couldn't even finish the first book of? The Hunger Games. Because it's like, this is a horrible world, with horrible people, with our main characters in a horrible place, and then it gets worse. Sounds like the most depressing thing. No, I'm going to read something else, So, basically, the Tenryubito play the Hunger Games with their slaves. They play the Hunger Games. Okay. Alright. That's the long and short of it. They play the Hunger Games. And since I'm not really that into the Hunger Games, I'm like, I expect the Tenryubito to do it, but I don't really need the details. They're horrible people. It makes sense. So, now God Valley was apparently, a lot of people thought that it was this important place. I never did. I never thought that God Valley was like the stronghold of rocks. A lot of people said that. Or was named that after the big battle with rocks or something like that. Or it was like meaningful to the celestial dragons or any of this. I never thought any of that. I really did not. I always just thought that God Valley just had a cool name of a place. And now that has been confirmed. It was just a nation that didn't ally itself with the world government. And then the king's there and stuff. And he's like, you've used our country for sport. You're going to kill all the citizens of my country. Because they're not just taking their slaves there. They're taking all the citizenry. They're like, okay, you see that country over there? You see that nation? They are now all involved in this Hunger Games thing. Go. And we'll see who gets the most points. And it's just like, whoa. So yeah, once again, we know they're awful people. We know they're absolutely horrendous and stuff, right? And then Shanks's, dad here, or we think is his dad, or everyone's going to assume is his dad, or some distant relative at the very least. I don't think he's his dad. I really don't. Maybe his uncle, or a distant relative or something like that. Like, I think it's been confirmed that Shanks, but once again, I don't know how much to trust film stuff. Until I see it in the manga, I don't really trust it. So, he's got the same last name and stuff like that, so he's from that family, but he might not be, directly related in that regard. But everyone's calling him Shanks' dad. So Figureland apparently is Shanks' dad. Before he had the cool beard and stuff, he kills the king automatically, and he's like, excellent, because they're like, we've been docking you 10,000 points for taking the sport out of the crown jewel, and he's like, alright, well, that'll give everybody else a good handicap, so that when I win, it'll be, give me a little bit of a challenge and stuff. So he's arrogant, he's a pretty badass look and stuff like that, like the knight's armor and stuff is cool. So that is what it is. So anyways, they basically are taking them out to the Hunger Games. Kuma is one of them, along with Ivankov and Ginny. Now, I'm going to straight up say, I don't know who Ginny is. I'm going to assume that she's going to be important to Kuma's backstory, but die. Maybe Julie Rabani's mother or something. Because I don't remember Ginny. I do not remember a slave or somebody in the Revolutionary Army or someone like that named Ginny. So, but I do know that this. So Ivankov is here as a slave and stuff like that, and they stop Kuma from being like killed and stuff by the other ones and stuff like that are there on the island. So on God Valley. So we don't know exactly what's going to go down here. But that's the end of the chapter. And so far the backstory is filled with sadness. Oda does not know how to write a happy backstory. 110% Oda does not write happy backstories for anybody. I have no idea. I can't think of a happy backstory for a character. I'm trying to think of one, but off the top of my head, I guess Roger, but we don't really know Roger's full story. I mean, we know what they were like when they first started sailing, but we don't know what hardships they went through and stuff like that. So I really can't think of anybody who had, just off the top of my head, who had a happy time. So either way, this was a fine chapter and an okay start to the backstory. My problem with the chapter is not the chapter singularly, but the fact of the matter is that Egghead has this problem of having too many plot points that literally, some of them don't even matter at the end of the day. They're just fluff. They're just fluff to fluff out the arc. Like Vegapunk splitting himself into 6 ways. Realistically, what does that do for the story or go anywhere? Him making the internet, well, what do we care? Like, there's a lot of stuff with that, but let's not talk about Vegapunk, because that's a whole video. That could be an hour-long rant from me about why Vegapunk is vastly disappointing and just not that good a character. But my problem is that, okay, we've been going through this arc, which, forgetting the Garp stuff for a second, because that was awesome. That was a nice break. The Egghead arc has been a little bit of, alright, can we get through this? Like the whodunit? Who betrayed us? There's Lucci. He's no match for us anymore, but clearly we need to bring Lucci into this and waste some time. And then, oh, there's the Seraphim, and let's just off-screen their battles and stuff like that. Like, okay, I get that you're trying to hurry it up, but you're adding a bunch of stuff we didn't need. And then, we have the PX army, we have Sentomaru, blah, blah, blah. Kizaru shows up. Okay. But before and during all this, we have the paw fruit, the memory thing, Julie Rubani going in, trying to access the memories, all that stuff, right? That's when this is what I was talking about, placement. We should have had this whole Kuma backstory then. This whole jumping between plot points every half a chapter that's my problem with Egghead right now. It's seriously, I think it's my problem with Egghead. Now, maybe you guys don't feel it as much. But on a week-to-week basis, when we keep jumping between the whodunit plotline, these characters are fighting, oh, now we have lore, and let's have flashback, and we keep jumping between these 4 points constantly, and then in the middle we go Garp time, which has been awesome, then we jump back to Egghead, where nothing's been solved, and we still are jumping all over the different plots. Too many plot threads going on at once, and instead of sticking to one, we have to showcase. And I sort of thought that Oda might have learned a little bit from Wano. Wano was a little too big, too grandiose with too many characters to follow. I get that, so some stuff had to be cut. And I don't think Wano's perfect for that, but I think Oda realized he tried to do a little too much, and then he tried to condense it in certain ways. Whether you think it worked or not, but here he's making the same damn mistakes. Because you could have taken this whole backstory from Kuma and put it before Kizaru and Saint Garcia showed up. Because now, we had a literal chapter named Kizaru versus Luffy, which not even half the chapter was Kizaru versus Luffy. No other time has that happened in this manga. You read any chapter which is a versus, it's, 3/4 of the chapter is literally them fighting. Huge double page spreads and stuff, right? So, like we're jumping away from the fight. Don't name chapters and don't have this fight and just keep jumping back. Like, no, we want to see Kizaru versus this, and don't make it seem like a fight since Kizaru's not really fighting Luffy. Kizaru the whole time has pretty much been, Luffy's been chasing him, and Kizaru has been trying to take down Vegapunk. Hasn't really been a fight. It's been more of a, I'll get you, no, well, I'll finish my mission first, you know. So it wasn't nearly as enjoyable. And then, when Saint Garcia shows up, now that Kizaru's been taken out and stuff like that, we're into this plot point. Okay, Saint Garcia showed up. One of the Gorosei. He's got this crazy devil fruit. What is he doing? What's with this awakening? He's going to kill Jewelry Bonnie. What the hell is happening right now? He's going to kill Luffy. And perfect time to jump back to that. You know that thing that we... Yeah. You know that thing that we talked about like 3 months ago where Jewelry Bonnie was going to learn all about her dad? And then we didn't see it because it was off screen when she learned about it. Yeah, now's the time to jump into that Kuma backstory. Let's take away the moment and the hype, you know, because that's what it is. It's the moment and the hype right now. It's like, okay, the Gorosei is here. What's gonna happen next and stuff? Do not jump away from that. We don't care right now about Kuma's backstory. I want to know about Kuma's backstory, but right now is not the time for it. You don't cut off the action in the middle like this when we're finally getting some stuff. That has been my problem with this arc overall, I think, is that we keep doing that. I could bring up a couple more examples, but suffice it to say at the end of the day is that has happened more than once. Instead of just, all right, these next, like, they didn't do that with the Garp chapters. I think Oda needs to learn from that time where he jumped away to do the Garp going to Hajinosu shit. He stayed there from beginning to end of Garp shows up to Hajinosu, and here's what happens at the end of Hajinosu. All done week to week, right? Perfect. Done. Compartmentalized. Here you go. He should have done that with the plot points here. Jumping back and forth from the whodunit to the Kizaru to the to the Seraphim, and then the Kuma stuff with Jewelry Bonnie. Keep jumping between the points every 3 pages of a 19-page chapter every week. We're focused on one thing. Keep the focus. Because I just think the focus is now lost. Now I'm like, yeah, great. All right, now we're into Kuma's backstory. But right now is not the time for it. I want to know what happens with Garcia. How are they going to fight him? Are we going to learn more about him? What's his devil fruit? What's going to happen with what's going on with Zoro and Lucci? What's happening in the present time? Right now is where the shit is going down. The action. You imagine if Oda had jumped away from Marineford? You imagine if Whitebeard was gearing up for an attack and he decided this was the time for half the chapter to be a flashback? Like, and not about either the character he's attacking or himself. Like, could you imagine if he's winding up, Whitebeard was winding up in Marineford, and then he was gonna attack Aokiji, and then fucking we jump to, and Doflamingo's backstory. Because he's at Marineford? Like, yeah, we needed Doflamingo's backstory eventually, and we got it in Dressrosa. Fantastic. And you could argue that, well, that wasn't his arc, or blah, blah, blah. Okay, well, what about the Sabo, Ace, Luffy shit? What if right there in the middle of Marineford is when he had placed that? How off-putting halfway through a chapter in Marineford would that have felt? We still wanted Ace, Sabo, Luffy's backstory. But right in the middle of, Blackbeard doing his age, and right before Shanks shows up, or when Whitebeard was fighting the Admirals, or what have you, that would never have been the time to do it. You know what I mean? Like, so this right now is just not feeling, I think the placement and the focus is just all a mess, and it's all over the place. So, though individually each part of the chapter is fine so far, and I have a lot of questions, splitting the focus, which has been happening a lot in Egghead, this is the most egregious chapter in Egghead that did this. It's like, I had to literally, I read this chapter yesterday, and then I had to read it again today, and I had to just sit down and actually read it, because the moment we jumped away, I'll be honest, I skimmed it, because I was like, okay, Kuma backstory, yeah, he was a slave, blah, blah, blah. I literally had to reread it today, because I did not care. I was like, can we jump back to St. Garcia, like, who saves Luffy from this attack? I need to know what happens here. Kuma's backstory is important. Not more important than the present time right now. So, I'm like, but anyway, that's my little rant about how One Piece has been going right now. I'm not, and the reason I'm really not a huge fan of this arc. Just not. Because for every time they give us something good, Kuma's backstory so far is good. And the St. Gay Saturn stuff is good. putting them two halves in the same chapter is splitting the focus too much for me, and I'm not happy about it. So, and it's happened more than once. So, anyways, maybe I'm nitpicking. I don't think I am, but if you guys disagree, that's fine too. But let me know down what you think down in the comment section down below. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe as always, and we'll see you beautiful people back here once again next time on for the next piece of One Piece. Chapter 1096. I hope, like, once again, now that we're into the Kuma stuff, I expect the whole chapter to be Kuma flashback. Maybe by the end of the page, we'll end of the chapter, we'll jump back to the present. But now that I know we're doing the Kuma backstory, I expect it. What would have been better for this is complete this whole chapter, and then the last page have Jewelry Bunny jump into, you know, Kuma backstory stuff. Like, just splitting the chapter in half. Oh, man. Man, oh, man. Took me right out of the moment. Anyways, it from me, guys. I'm not talked enough about it. Alright, we'll see you guys back here next time. Have a good one.